Hello, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Since 2016, I've been answering your questions, giving advice and inspiration to countless gamers. Here, you can ask questions in the comments and get your own videos as an answer. So I encourage you, enjoy by all means. But come back to visit with your friend, the Dungeon Tutor. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Today is another day for RPGaDay, day 10, and today's question, or topic I should say, is origin. Now, what can I talk about? But I'm going to talk about my origins in gaming, because being a little autobiographical in these things I think is a good thing. Now, I started my role-playing adventure when I was 8 years old. My parents got a copy of the Holmes box set of Dungeons and Dragons. The basic set, the B set. And I had, my parents weren't the kind who would be interested in Dungeons and Dragons. Never were, never would be. One time I tried to get my mother to play Dungeons and Dragons with me, and it did not go well. She read the details on elves and decided that because of the description of elves in the basic rules, they like to feast and frolic. All she wanted to do was feast and frolic. When I tried to get her in the direction of a dungeon, she's like, is there feasting and frolicking in there? I'm like, no, there's danger and death, but treasure and power. And nope, I just rather feast and frolic because I'm an elf and that's what I do. So yes, that was a mistake. But, more to the point, I read through that Holmes D&D, and quite honestly, I didn't get it. I was 8. I had very little context. I was not a wargamer, and a lot of those elements in that book were just stuff that I could have wrapped my head around with a little bit of advice, a little bit of help, but I didn't have that. I had nobody around who played those kind of games, so I was left to my own devices, and while I read them and I was endlessly entertained by the descriptions of monsters, for instance, or the sample story in the book describing what an adventure is like, I didn't learn to play a role-playing game, and I did not play any role-playing games using those rules. And sadly, that set got lost over numerous, moves and the like, so yeah, they're long gone. But I thought they were cool. Now, down the road, of course, we had all kinds of fun. The scandals of the Satanic Panic and variety of things. So D&D started to get to be kind of like a sketchy thing. But my father was fairly open-minded with me. So as we were clawing through that weirdness called high school, I had a friend who was into role-playing games. And while I had been introduced to game books, which are solo role-playing games, I got a shelf full of them right along through here, that wasn't quite role-playing the way that I understand it now. Although there were some great stories in there. Joe Dever's works, of course, were brilliant. J.H. Brennan's Grail Quest was wonderful. The works of Way of the Ninja were fun. Odd ones by people like Steve Jackson and Gary Gygax. Yeah, they made game books as well, but didn't quite reach me the same way role-playing games would. Then I had a friend who, again, we were into video games together, and then he went off to the seminary that I eventually went to in my sophomore year, and he brought back stories of these role-playing games. Fantastic stories. And I was interested in role-playing games before this, and I had ended up with the Red Box, the Dungeons and Dragons basic set from what is now BECME. And with that knowledge and what he knew, we started cobbling some things together. And I joined a D&D group of my peers and some upperclassmen. And I was handed a shiny new first edition AD&D character, Lawful Good Cleric. The healing battery, the price that just about everybody who back in the day joined into a group, the character they were given. Because everybody can use a healing battery. And that was basically my role, and I took to it. My character did get to do some cool things. Was never as great at fighting as other people, but I realized quite quickly that by keeping everybody else upright, they were my weapons. They made me more effective because they wouldn't have stood up if I hadn't kept healing them when they kept getting hit. So there was a lot to learn about role-playing games back then. Had 2 different game masters, each with their own style, so I learned quite a bit through them. And we would level up our characters after every adventure. So by the time that I was done with that, my character was 21st level. We went through a lot of classic modules. Not just the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons ones, we also did some of the Back Me dungeons, which was cool. There were some really good ones, and it taught me a wide range of different games and game styles, and what I liked about games and some of what I didn't like about games. But I was playing then. I wasn't running games. I still wasn't sure if I'd actually have the confidence to really do it, although I did take those books, the Dungeon Master's Guide especially, read through Frank Menser's interpretation of D&D over and over and over again, and as a matter of fact, I still have those books. Oh, the jackets are long gone. These are in tatters. These are extraordinarily well-loved books. Most of the pages are still there. I think you could still play off of these, but I keep these now just mostly as a memento. I actually repurchased all of these books, and I have much better copies now. But yeah, this is the basic set and expert set. This one being the expert. Again, no bright blue cover anymore. But to play Dungeons & Dragons up to 10th level using the Back Me rules, this pile here will get you there. I've thought about, hole punching them and putting them into, but I just don't have the heart to drill holes into my books. So I just keep them like that. But that was my first role-playing game, my first set. And I can't really extricate myself from the fact that I originated as a Dungeons & Dragons player. That was my beginning. That was my origin. And I learned how to role-play from the altar that Gary Gygax built about how role-playing games are supposed to be. Which some people might say screwed me up a bit, because I would have my fixed preconceived notions. For instance, I disdained Fate for being way too loosey-goosey, too wide open, not really a role-playing game as much as a guided storytelling experience. And I have since learned otherwise. Quite the lesson learned. Yeah, it is a full role-playing game, no doubt about it. And you can do amazing things with it. But that was my very first, that was my origin. And if I went back even further, where did my love of fantasy that led me down the path to role-playing games go? Or where did it come from? Well, it started when my mother would read, starting with The Hobbit, J.R.R. Tolkien's works to me when I was 3 and 4. That's how I learned to read. I didn't learn see Dick run, see Spot run, Dick run. No, I didn't. By the time I got to those books, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. I was incredibly bored. I was trouble as a kindergartner because I was just bored. My mother had prepared me for well beyond that, and yeah. So yeah, it was a time. I will say that. But then eventually I discovered video games. And video games really synced in my love for things of fantasy and adventure and action that I had a hand in, that I was the moving force of that. Not a movie to be watched and absorbed, not a book to read somebody's clever idea of a storyline. No, I could make some of my own stuff. But it wasn't until I found role-playing games with other people that I really got to appreciate how much different entertainment is when you feel like you can do anything. There's nothing that's out of bounds. That decrepit door that needs a key that you can't open no matter how much it looks like it's swinging from one hinge. In a video game, you can't get through that door until the program lets you get through that door. In a role-playing game, you can kick that sucker down whenever you find it. And maybe you shouldn't go down there, but that's up to you. That's your choice. And that is perfectly fine. So yes, role-playing games were a huge leap for me. And when I actually got to play with other people and appreciate what this Dungeons and Dragons thing was. It really confused me, I'll be honest with you. The idea that this was a satanic thing, this was evil, I just didn't get. It was a love of fantasy. It was a love of choice and getting to do cool things that you can't do in real life. You probably can't save the world. Goodness knows you can barely save yourself sometimes. And a role-playing game lets you feel powerful for a little while. It lets you, you know, meet up with some friends. First of all, I made some friends, which was cool because I did not share the same walk of life with any of the people that I played with early on. So yeah, but at the same time, I met some of my best friends I've ever had through role-playing games. My best friend, the guy who was the best man at my wedding, the guy who was the godfather of my son, and I am the godfather of his daughter. Yeah, we met in role-playing games. He was the friend of my friend that went off to the seminary, and I followed him the next year. That was his friend that I became best friends with. It's a twisted tale, but it's true, 100% true. So, yeah, role-playing games, yeah, I have an origin. I remember my origin very clearly. But I will say this too. Again, another origin. My love of other role-playing games. When I was at that seminary, we tried other games. My friend told me about Top Secret, which intrigued me because, you know, James Bond, spies, cool. Only got a chance to play that a little bit, but I thought it was pretty cool. We actually kind of tried to redesign or recreate the game from his memory, which wasn't great. And we just, you know, cobbled together a percentile system, and it was okay. But I played Star Wars, the role-playing game from back then. Tried out a couple of other games, too. So I got some experience with other systems. And then, the next year, I went and stayed with my friend for the summer for a week. And we went to an actual game store. And I picked up 3rd edition GURPS, because it appealed to me for value. I could play anything using GURPS. This sounds great. Unfortunately, if I'd have known back then how little I would end up playing GURPS through my gaming career, I always want to, but it never seems to work out, unfortunately. That was a big first for me. Then when I was in college and getting some of my own money, I went and I bought Shadowrun, based on that awesome Larry Elmore cover art from the 1st edition. It was great. And that I played quite a bit of, so I do like the Shadowrun. But those are my origin stories in the gaming hobby. That's what I did. And, you know, over time, I created 2 role-playing games, none of which are published. They're my own hobby projects more than anything. Although I really do kind of want to get them out. It would be nice to have other people see my babies and see what they say about them. That is also the most terrifying thing I think I've ever done. My origin of actually being a published author was running into Alphinius Goo through his Kickstarter for GUI Cube. And after he persuaded me to back his Kickstarter, which he did, over time and getting to know each other, he eventually decided he liked my sense of humor. He liked what I could do in terms of turning a tale and stuff, and he offered to let me write an adventure for him, Strangely Gooey Holiday. And I did, and it's good. I'm pretty happy with it. He was pretty happy with it. He published it. So if you ever want to go to GUI Cube and you want to find my work, even though GUI Cube doesn't really do a great job of crediting their authors, unfortunately, my name is under the cover. So, but yes, those are my origins. And hey, maybe they parallel some of what you've experienced, or maybe they're completely different and you have a story yourself to tell, which you could leave in the comments. We would love to read it. I would love to read it, and I'd certainly feel tickled if you left something like that behind. That would be fantastic. Or, you know, opinions, questions, further questions would be great too. Probing questions about my origin. Sure, I have no secrets. Ask me anything you'd like, and I'll respond one way, shape, or form. Yeah, I hope you continue to watch my videos too. To do that, you can like, subscribe, hit the notification button so you know when I'm making a video and putting it out. I will be putting out one for every day of the month of August for RPGaDay, but I'm going to be doing more than just that. So, you're certainly welcome to come along for the ride. And I do hope that between that next video and now, well, I hope that you, yes, you, get a chance to roll some dice, play some games, have some fun. Stay safe out there, friends. Until that next time, farewell.